Like to call the meeting to order. Regular Planning Commission meeting today, Tuesday, June 18th, 2024. Roll call.
Okay, Chair Stewart is an excused absence. Vice Chair Tidy Zamora.
Here.
Commissioner Michael Alterman is also an excused absence, along with Natasha Basso, excused absence. So we have John Dinan.
Here.
Steve Link, alternate.
Here.
And Ben Rubin, our alternate.
Our conflict of interest statement, any planning commission member or staff who has a direct conflict of interest on any scheduled agenda item to be considered is to declare their conflict at this time. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Planning Commission Board. Individual comments will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes, or as stated by the presiding officer, and time cannot be yielded to another person. Under state law, matters presented during the public comment period cannot be discussed or acted upon. For record purposes, state your name and city of residence. Please make your comments directly to the Planning Commission members. Any public comments?
Good evening. My name is Rich Homer. For those of you who do not know me, I was a city manager of Riverbank from 1995 to 2011. I'm here tonight. I'll speak about agenda item 3.2 because I'm here to talk about tiny homes. I have no opposition to the tiny homes at behind Lucky House, nor do I have any opposition to the 8 tiny homes I think you approved at Morel and Oakdale Avenue. However,
Excuse me, sir.
I now understand
Sir,
there's a
Excuse me for a
proposal.
second. I have a point of order.
Sorry, what?
I have a point of order.
Sure.
This is public comment period for items not appearing on the agenda. You
I
have
understand,
enough.
and I'm going to give you a comment on, I just am tying that together with an item I'm going to speak on. The letter you have is also about another area where you're considering building tiny homes, and it's in opposition to that because we need parks in northwest Riverbank. We have none. That's what I'm here to speak about. So it's
stand
not,
correct.
it's not on the agenda.
I stand corrected.
Okay. Now I understand there's a proposal to build additional tiny homes on Jackson near Sierra. There are a number of reasons why I'm personally opposed to this, and a number of the residents in that area are. You have a letter from Cal Campbell, former council member for District 3. Now, I also want to point out all these other tiny homes are in District 3. It seems like you're putting all these tiny homes in District 3, and you're forgetting that we have 4 districts here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Former city manager Sean Scully both agreed that this vacant piece of property should be identified as a park. There are no parks or playgrounds in the northwest area of Riverbank, particularly since the Language Academy, or used to be known as Real Altura School, closed, and it became the residents. It's closed off now. You can't go on school property. I used to go over there with my grandchildren. We'd play basketball, kick some soccer balls. You can't do that anymore. Residents must drive across Patterson Road to go to a park, or walk across, or to get to the nearest park. While there's support by Councilman Urubi and City Manager Marcelo Garcia to create the one and only neighborhood park in this area, others want to build more tiny homes to serve foster children aging out of the system, mental health patients from the county deemed able to be on their own, and homeless veterans. Not that I'm opposed to those folks, but to me, it's enough is enough. I'm not saying there's no needed services. However, many Riverbank residents would be, how many Riverbank residents would be served by these homes? A neighborhood park would serve far more residents than the tiny homes in this area would. Moreover, Cal Campbell, former council member, promised there would be a park in this area in his district. There's no other available land in this area for consideration for a park. How many tiny homes can you have in District 3 when none of the other districts have any? The proposed tiny homes on Jackson near Sierra are in a developed residential area. There's an elementary school on the next street over. There's a rehab facility, which is right at the end of Topeka and Jackson. And then you have a mental health recovery home on Topeka. The best and highest use for this property is a neighborhood park to serve the residents of Riverbank. With the other tiny homes already being built in 2 locations in District 3, I think the need of this population inside and outside of Riverbank is being met. What is not being met is a need for the park in Northwest Riverbank. When this item comes up for your consideration, I hope you will think about the things I've said tonight. I appreciate your time and consideration of this matter. Have a good evening.
Good evening, planning commissioners, citizens, and staff. Milt Treeweiler. I'm a lifetime Stanislaus County resident. In a survey last year of what people in the United States feared most, government officials was 1, economic and financial collapse was 2, Russia using nuclear weapons. We need food to stay alive. This is just a fact and reality. 20 to 25 days without food and you're dead. Where is the best farmland in the world found? Right here in Stanislaus County. The soils in the proposed Riverwalk project area are young, fertile soils. The climate in Stanislaus County is ideal for growing food. MID and TID are the only area with enough water to grow farmland on or farm crops on for hundreds of years. The proposed Riverwalk sphere of influence is 2.4 square miles in size. That's larger than the entire city of Houston. That is as large as the entire city of Waterford. This would be a disaster for all the people of Riverbank. You're the ones who will be the losers. I've talked to hundreds of citizens, and 85% or more of them are against this Riverwalk project. Many of them understand this will destroy prime farmland. It would also change the very reason many of you chose to live here. You wanted to live in a nice, peaceful city, not in Modesto, California. You wanted reasonable water and sewer rates. So what's the reason this proposal will come to you for a vote? It's because a few people worship money and power. Commissioners, you can see through this scam. Your neighbors don't want this, and you know this is bad. Don't be intimidated, bribed, or blackmailed into voting for this. This project will not help you or your neighbors. It's just a plot so a few can make lots of money to bring in people from other areas. We need food to stay alive. This is just a fact and reality. We need to think about our children and our descendants and their well-being. Don't let a few people's selfish desires control you. There's plenty of land in Stanislaus County on the west side of Interstate 5 to build houses on that's not suitable for farming. This proposed Riverwalk development is not for the people of Riverbank. Keep Riverbank great. Vote against this proposed Riverwalk project. We must plan for our children and descendants first. This is the responsibility we adults have today. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, public comment is closed. Moving on to the consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendar are to be acted upon by a single action of the Planning Commission Board unless requested by an individual Planning Commission member or member of the public for special consideration. Otherwise, the recommendation of staff will be accepted and acted upon by motion of the Planning Commission Board. There's item 2.1, which is posting of the agenda. The agenda for the June 18th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting was posted on the City Community Center Bulletin Board, City Hall North and South Bulletin Boards, Post Office, City website, and email to the library on June 14th, 2024. Item 2.2, approval of the June 18th, 2024 agenda. This provides an opportunity for the Planning Commission or staff to recommend that an item be placed on the agenda for discussion or to adjust the proposed agenda to allow an item to be taken out of order. Item 2.3, approval of the March 19th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting minutes, having been read by the individual commissioners and stands approved as submitted. I now seek a motion to approve the consent.
So moved.
Okay, roll call. Vice Chair Zamora,
Yes.
Commissioner Dynan,
Yes.
I'm gonna have to, Commissioner Link has to abstain from, item 2.3, so, Commissioner Rubin? Okay, it's approved 3-0.
Okay, moving on to the Planning Commission public hearings. The public notice for items 3.1 and 3.2 were published on June 5th, 2024 in the Riverbank News. Item 3.1, Architecture and Site Plan Review, 8-2023, Department File 23-0020, the Masonic Lodge Black Diamond Event Center at 6701 Second Street with APN number 132-010-051. The proposed architecture and site plan review, ASPR application proposes modifications to the exterior of the existing building located at 6701 Second Street, Riverbank, at APN 132-010-051. A conditional use permit was previously approved on March 21st, 2023 to allow the sale of alcohol by the drink and live music with dancing for the Black Diamond Event Center. The current application is to consider the installation of new windows and doors on the existing building. This ASPR was analyzed pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act. The project is categorically exempt pursuant to CEQA guidelines, section 15301, exempt for existing facilities. And we have a presentation here this evening.
We also received a comment letter, which we have passed out to all the commissioners.
All right. Good evening, Commissioners. Good evening, Chair. Michael Arroyo, Contract Planner with the City of Riverbank and Associate Planner with JB Anderson Land Use Planning. So again, before you, for your consideration this evening is Architecture and Site Plan Review 08-2023 for the Black Diamond Event Center. So again, the project is located at 6701 Second Street, further identified by the parcel number there. So the property is located within the downtown specific plan. That's important. We'll comment on that a little bit later. The property has a general plan land use designation of mixed use, has a general commercial or C2 zoning, and has a downtown general designation for the downtown specific plan. The proposed project under consideration this evening is pretty straightforward. It's to consider exterior improvements consisting of new windows, doors, proposed signage, which you will not be approving if approved. It's just for illustrative purposes, and if approved, they'll apply for a sign permit at a separate stage, but this is just for illustrative purposes. The proposed project is consistent with the City of Riverbank's downtown specific plan, and the downtown specifics plans aims to guide long-term revitalization of Riverbank's downtown area. So this map and a couple others for reference of where the property is located within the city's downtown specific plan. So here the property in question, the subject property is located at the northwest corner of Santa Fe Street as well as 2nd Street. The property is adjacent or contiguous to the Riverbank Memorial Chapel. It's adjacent to existing multifamily residential developments and a vacant light industrial property. I think it was previously a food processing plant to the south. And this zoning map is, again, just for reference, as you can see there at the intersection of Santa Fe and 2nd with general commercial C2 zoning designation. Excuse me. So this is an important slide, as I kind of mentioned previously. The property is identified within the boundary of the downtown specific plan, as illustrated at the bottom, circled or highlighted in red. Again, that downtown general, downtown specific plan designation. It's important, to note that every parcel and every property within the boundaries of this specific plan are subject, to the regulations spelled out in the downtown specific plan. which governs future development applications for development, must comply with these regulations, and the proposed project has been conditioned as such, so they must adhere to those regulations spelled out in that specific plan. So if you have had an opportunity to visit the site, or if you haven't, this site plan here pretty much captures the existing conditions, the layout, where it's situated. I would say that the only difference in this exhibit is the two doors that front Santa Fe Street, sort of at the bottom of the screen, which are proposed improvements to the ASPR, to the building rather. So here we have, excuse me, the front elevation. You know, it's not much is proposed. Primarily, it's exterior stucco, the two new doors in that Black Diamond Event Center is that sign that I was telling you about that is just for illustrative purposes. It will require a building permit at a later stage. The little swatch there, the exterior to be light gray with smooth stucco finish, which is consistent with the downtown specific plan regulations. Rear elevation, you see on the existing conditions, they have boarded up a couple windows. The proposed elevation has a single window and an improved door, I believe, will be added to the exterior or improved. Obviously, their door exists, but it will be improved. Here we have the east elevation, another door. It appears through the elevations that were submitted that they will be removing or closing an entrance door, or not an entrance door, but an access door. And also, I just want to make a note that I'm not certain, it was requested by the applicant if they would be present. So I'm not certain if they are here to answer any of your questions that I may not be able to answer, unfortunately. They are here? Excellent. So they're here if they're willing to answer any questions. And the west elevation, so the entire building will be stuccoed, restuccoed, and the same light gray, smooth stucco finish. This next slide's important. These are policy design standards that are taken from the specific plan. So the city requires durable, high-quality materials. And then that's 8.3, and 10.1 is that the city will require building access for pedestrians and bicyclists by providing the most direct pedestrian access from sidewalks and parking areas. So currently it exists, sidewalks are from Santa Fe and Second Street lead you directly to the entrance, which will be primarily, the main entrance will be on Santa Fe Street. So as was highlighted in the introduction, the proposed project is exempt from further environmental analysis pursuant to CEQA guidelines, section 15301 for class 1 existing facilities. So staff recommends adopting the Planning Commission resolution, which would approve the site plan, architecture and site plan review 08/2023. And that concludes the presentation. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer those for you, and if the property owner would like to. So,
Any comments by any of the commissioners? No? Okay, at this time, we welcome public comments. As was mentioned earlier, we did receive written comments, and those written comments have been provided to all the commissioners. We have one coming in.
I'm downtown resident, and I am confused about what is or isn't going on. sent out notices. They published one, they posted one here, they posted one on the building, they sent them in the mail to the property owners. Now, the two, they're posted here and published in the paper, stated that this project was only doors and windows. The one that went to the property owners, the one that's posted on the building, it's got a whole lot more on it than doors and windows. It says, for improvements to the exterior of the building, not limited to the installation of windows, doors, sign, and other modifications to the existing structure. That's pretty vague. And that's a whole lot more than just what they're saying is doors and windows. So they didn't give us any information. They did not give us any documents. The ASPR thing that you're doing tonight, it's on the staff report. It's the plan review 08-2023. In the resolution, it says that they have site plans and elevations stamped June 13th, 2024. So they haven't been made public, those 20 ones I got last Thursday. We just, nothing, no documents are made available to the public. But which ones are you ruling on? The ones from last year or the ones you just got? Or have you even seen the new ones? Because the public hasn't. So they're kind of like, withholding stuff. But it's just confusing what they're doing and what they're not doing. Because one says one thing, one says another. They're talking about standard conditions that are part of the resolution that they have to follow. Those standard resolutions are almost 11, 12 years old. They're old. They came in for new developments, not for existing downtown. The undergrounding, putting them into financial districts and water, lands, the other kind of districts that they have out there in the new areas, they don't have down here. And yet it states that he's required to participate in all that. How do you do all that in a neighborhood that doesn't do that? Does that mean the whole neighborhood ends up doing it because you have to do a district? How does that work? Because this, I don't understand why this thing has anything to do with an existing neighborhood. It's found, it says it requires general plan consistency, and that's what they found. But what about the downtown Pacific plan? That Pacific plan is what overtakes the general plan. It's in the specific plan. When there's a conflict or whatever, then you go to the specific plan. The signing, the lighting, all that stuff is specific plan stuff, but they're not looking at that. They have a permit.
Your time is up. Thank you.
So just concerning the city standard conditions, in the agenda, there's a resolution that you guys would make a motion on. There are 22 project-specific conditions which the applicant property owner must adhere to. And then we insert those standard conditions essentially as a safeguard or a safety net for the city, that if any issues occur, come up during the, project development, that the city can, assign those conditions that you must adhere to those city standard conditions. Now, it's evident that all of those conditions that are related to vesting tentative subdivision map, there are certain city conditions that are not applicable to the project, but city staff doesn't have, they don't have the time to take out and plug them in. So we use that as kind of a safety guard. As far as the noticing, the resident stated that it was different noticing, but we just have a notice that goes out specifically to residents within 300 feet or property owners within 300 feet of the project site. And we also post it on the city website, the library, City Hall, South, North, and I think I'm leaving one out. But we do that in advance of the Planning Commission so that if residents or property owners would like to view the plans that are on file in the city, they can do that in advance of the planning commission meeting. So
Thank you. Any further public comments on item 3.1? And we'll close public comments on item 3.1. At this time, I seek a motion of approval of resolution 2024-002.
I move to approve item 3.1, the architectural site plan of Black Diamond.
Second.
Okay, roll call. Vice Chair Zamora,
Yes.
Commissioner Dynan,
Yes.
Commissioner Link,
Yes.
and Commissioner Rubin.
Yes.
It's approved 4-0.
Okay, moving on to item 3.2, the architecture and site plan review, 09-2023, Department File 23-0026, the Lucky House Tiny Homes. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that name. APN 075-010-065. The proposed architecture and site plan review application proposes the development of the tiny house village of 38 detached residential dwellings with private streets to be located on vacant land between Ward Avenue and the westerly extension of Ross Avenue. This ASPR was analyzed pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act. The project is category exempt pursuant to the CEQA guidelines, section 15332, exemption for infill development projects.
Vice Chair Link, or I'm sorry, Vice Chair Zamora,
Yes.
Joshua Mann, Community Development Director. I just wanted to mention that I was previously employed with the engineering firm that is the applicant tonight for this project. And just out of an abundance of caution, I want to step down and be away from the dais during the presentation and discussion.
Okay.
Good evening, Commissioners, members of the audience. I'm Miguel Galvez, Contract City Planner for the City of Riverbank. I will be presenting this item this evening. Mid-Valley Engineering is the applicant for architectural site plan review application number A, architectural site plan review 09-2023. The owner is Wei. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Wei Wang. Anyway, they are proposing the development of a multifamily residential project consisting of 38 detached residential dwellings with private streets on a vacant 2.25 acre property. Just get you orientated with the property. The subject site is bounded by Ward Avenue on the south, the westerly extension of Ross Avenue on the north. There are single-family residential properties located east and south of the project site. A trucking business is located west of the site. A household waste recycling business, a tile fabrication installation business are presently operating north of the project site. There's additional commercial businesses north of that, front on Patterson Road. Ross Avenue terminates at the northeast corner. It's a dedicated right-of-way. There's a fence there. West of that is a private road which extends west of Ross Avenue, and that'll be part of the project. There's a communication cell tower that's located at the northwest corner of the property. I'll show a close-up of that. There's tower equipment that's recently installed there at the east side of the communications tower facility. That equipment was installed on the property without consent of the property owner. I want to point out there's a 12-foot wide alley that's located east of the site. Between the alley is between Ross Avenue and Ward Avenue, and it tees into the project site there on the east. The 2.25 acre property has been vacant for many years. The project site, as I said, does not include the communications tower, which is identified in a yellow outline. You can barely see that, I think. The project site is in red. The yellow area is the communication tower, which is not part of the project site. There is a utility easement along the north side of the property line. A close-up of the project site, presently the aerial shows a number of equipment on the property. This is, there's trailers, there's storage containers. All this is equipment that is operated by the recycling facility to the north that will be relocated, that will not be allowed to remain on site. The property has been vacant, I don't know, for as long as I remember. I grew up in Riverbank, so I'm familiar with the site. Just taking a closer look there of some of the recent street views. Here's some site pictures from Ross Avenue. The one on the left you can see is I'm on the Ross Avenue right away. There's a fence there, and if you look further, you see the private road. That is a private extension of a private road extension of Ross Avenue. The fence is proposed to come down, but the balance of that pavement will remain private property. If you look over by the tower equipment property, you can see the cell tower there is completely enclosed. As I mentioned, the tower company has installed some equipment there that's tied to the tower facility. This was done without the consent of the property owner. They will be requiring that the tower operator remove all them. It will be located north of the site, next to the communication towers. If they don't relocate that, they'll lose one of the units, but they'll be working with the tower company, which is leasing the property from the property owner. Here's a couple of pictures looking north and northwest from Ward Avenue. Looking north on the one on the left there, you can see the cell tower. You can see the trucking business further to the west. If you look at the right picture, there was a recent hit and run accident, I guess you can say. The hit and run driver kind of smashed down their fence and took off, but it originally was fence and it had slats there. But that will be eventually removed. If you look at the property, as I mentioned, to the east of the property, there's an alleyway. There's residential properties there, homes, and there's a gate there. The gate is used, well, to control access to the property and onto this site. Basically, there's a line of power poles that contain both electrical lines and telephone lines that run through that. There's an easement for that. The alleyway itself is rather narrow. It's 12 feet wide. It'll be very difficult to kind of use. I suppose people do use it, but terminating the access to the alley will be terminated with this project here. Looking at the general plan and zoning designations, on the left is the general plan map, on the right is the zoning map. The site has a general plan designation of mixed use. The map here doesn't really show that very well, but it's mixed use. Properties to the north are also mixed use. Properties to the east have a medium density residential, kind of what this property will be developed at. Properties to the south of Ward Avenue will have a low density residential designation. Properties to the west also have a mixed use general plan designation. In terms of zoning, the property is on mixed use district CX1. There you can see the property outlined in red. The properties to the north also have CX1 zoning, mixed use zoning. Properties to the east have a single family residential or R1 zoning district, as well as properties to the south. Properties to the west have a commercial industrial zoning designation. In terms of permitted uses in the mixed-use zoning designation, multifamily development with a minimum density of 8 dwelling units per acre is permitted. The proposed project will result in 17.2 dwelling units per gross acre, which is in conformance with the mixed-use zoning designation. Looking at the project site a little closer, the project includes the development of 38 detached dwellings, tiny homes, measuring in size from 426 square feet to 805 square feet. Each dwelling will be provided with one off-street parking space, measuring 9 by 18 feet, for a total of 38 parking spaces. One of the units will be set aside for use by property manager and on-site property manager. Each of the dwellings will be provided with a fenced private patio area of at least 300 square feet for private open space. Open space will be provided between the units through a system of walking paths and landscape areas. You can see areas to the east and areas between the units there. Those will be used to meet our common open space requirements. No parking will be allowed in the private alley areas, which I'll get to in a minute. As I mentioned, all the streets that are proposed and alleyways will be privately maintained by the property owner. Going back to the site plan, a 6-foot high masonry wall is proposed along the western property line next to the trucking business. A new 6-foot high wood board fence is proposed along the eastern property line next to the existing residential that will cover up the alleyway, that gate that's there. A 6-foot high fence barrier is also proposed along the north side of the property, north of the proposed private road. This will help buffer the existing light industrial uses from these homes there. The existing chain link fence that you saw kind of torn down along Ward Avenue will be removed, as well as the existing chain link fence at the Ross Avenue intersection at the northeast corner. As I mentioned, there'll be 2 private driveways, actually 3. The ones that are outlined in blue are 37-foot wide private roads. They will be developed to have access from Ward Avenue. And then the road alignment there identified in purple, that will also be a private road that will be developed to a 35-foot wide partial width street standard. And that will provide access onto Rose Avenue. These 3 roads will be private, again, privately maintained. There'll be signs saying this is a private road. There are proposed 2 alleyways. The alleyways will be between these 2 private roads. They're a little narrower. They're 27-foot wide. Again, they will be used to provide access to parking spaces for each of these units. There'll be kind of access through the backyard, so to speak. These will be designated as fire lanes, so you cannot have on-site parking there. You can't block that. People will have their own driveways there for each of the units. If they do have visitors, I suppose they can park along the west private street there on the west side or on Ward Avenue more than likely. Trash service will be provided through individual totes. For stormwater collection and retention, a French drain system is proposed to collect and percolate stormwater that's captured on site and percolating to the ground. The property owner contemplates the development of a storm drain retention on a property to the north and to east to address some of the storm drainage concerns that have been identified for that area. Going on to the elevations, all of the proposed dwellings are single story. The front of the dwellings will incorporate a porch along with a 3-foot high enclosed fence railing and entryway. The proposed dwellings will incorporate concrete tile roof, stucco siding, white vinyl frame windows, outdoor wall lanterns, wood fencing, and gates. The site will be landscaped with walking pathways, street light standards proposed along the private streets and along the walking paths. And here's a rendition of the proposed units there. 2 housing models are proposed. There'll be 24 1-bedroom units and 14 2-bedroom units. There are some details. Each of the models will have 3 alternatives elevations, so you can kind of, I provided samples in that PowerPoint, but the agenda report has all elevation alternatives for each of the units. Here's a sample of the floor plan for a 1-bedroom. These are again 426 square feet. For the 2 bedrooms, a little large, over 800 square feet. When staff evaluate the project, here are some of the considerations that we kind of addressed a little bit. Staff evaluate the proposal and identify these areas, the following four areas. One, the communications tower equipment. Number two, the proximity to light industrial uses. Number three, stormwater runoff. Number four, Oakdale Irrigation District facilities. Going back to the first one, the communications tower equipment. As mentioned earlier, the communication tower equipment was installed outside the cell tower's parcel, which just leads to the cell tower onto the project site. It presently conflicts with with one of the units is proposed. It will have to be relocated at the cost to the cell tower. The property owner has begun discussions with them about that. And so either they have that removed or they lose one of the units, and they don't want to lose one of the units. Proximity to light industrial uses. As I mentioned earlier, the property to the north is used with a variety of commercial light industrial uses. The right cycling business presently uses an outdoor parking lot to receive and store recyclables. It also uses the existing project site for storage, and as well as employee parking. Typically, when you have residential development next to light industrial uses, they're usually not allowed without any type of buffering measures. Usually there's landscaping or fencing and things like that. And that's to address noise, dust, litter, and unsightliness. The applicant is concerned about this, and they're proposing some type of barrier, at least a fence on the north side of the private road, or a wall. It's going to depend on their funding. They will be looking at applying for some low-income housing tax credit funding to help pay for some of these costs, and depending on their budget. They're looking at providing some type of barrier to help address any externalities that come from the property to the north. When I looked at the proximity of residential units next to commercial, the properties to the east of this site are also, they're residential, but they have a medium density residential. Usually you have, in this case, it's mixed use. The parts to the east, they have light uses, like industrial uses, and then just south of Ross Avenue, they have residential uses, but they could be developed at a higher density. And so usually there's a transition of heavier uses to lighter uses. And so you got you got commercial, light industrial, and then you get a medium density or a multifamily, which kind of serves to buffer uses to the south, which are single family. And this being a mixed use zone will allow that buffering to take place. It'll be a transition. And we will have conditions of approval that are recommended to help mitigate any concerns with that. But moreover, the applicant really was intent on applying for this type of housing because they have employees at their work businesses, the Lucky House, and some of the businesses that they lease to that, they're having trouble finding places to live in. So they're proposing these type of housing to provide opportunities for some of the employees that rent some of the properties that they have a place to go live. And so these will be rentals and it'll be walking distance. So it helps meet a housing needs balance. It helps provide affordable housing units, whether there's single family, multifamily. And since in close proximity to the commercial businesses, it really minimizes the amount of traffic impact that you have because people will be able to walk rather than drive to work. So when we looked at these things, does it make sense to have medium density and a mixed use zoning? Staff thinks that this would be a good location for it, especially since a lot of this property is under the control of the property owner. Stormwater runoff. Staff is aware that there have been issues with sheet flow, amount of water that comes down from the buildings. And there have been reports that it flows to the property, to the project site from the recycling facility. It'll travel south to this property and perhaps properties to the west. We heard, not in writing, but orally, that the trucking business has concerns with some of the stormwater that goes off this side onto their property. And so stormwater is an issue. As I mentioned, a French drain percolation system is proposed to collect and dispose of stormwater on site. But moreover, the applicant is looking at developing a storm drain basin to serve the industrial businesses to the site. When they look at building the road, the private road, I say extension of Ross Avenue, it'll be built to part with streets at 35 feet. And so the north, there'll be an additional 12 feet of additional pavement that will be graded and paved. So the north side will grade to the property to the north. And all that should be flowing into the proposed storm drain basin that they want to build. And any water that comes on the south side will be drained into the French drain system. But it will be graded, the property will be graded to make sure that our stormwater is remained on the appropriate property and addressed that way. The last area is with Oak Irrigation District facilities. It's my understanding that there's a standpipe located at that southeast corner of the project site. The applicant will be required to coordinate any removal or relocation of OID facilities on that site, that are abandoned or relocated, and this is typical. But these were the main issues that staff saw with the site plan and believes that these issues will be addressed through the conditions of approval. Moving forward with the findings that have to be made for approving an architect's site plan review. There are 4 in the zoning code. The first one deals with, is the project consistent and does it comply with the zoning regulations and development standards? The second one is, will it will not create conflicts with vehicles, pedestrians, bicycles? The proposed tiny home development will help develop one vacant infill property. As well help the city meet its regional housing needs allocation for low-income housing. So in that sense, it complies with the general plan and our need for housing. The project also will help develop a property connection. If people want to be able to walk from Ward Avenue north, they'll be able to increase pedestrian access and bicycle facilities, things like that. The fire marshal did review the circulation layout of the project and did not have any concerns with turnaround and turning radiuses on the property. The project was referred to Jilton Solid Waste for their trash collection. They did not respond, but typically though, their drivers are pretty crafty in being able to pick up the totes and things like that. So being able to make these findings, staff believes that these 2 findings can be made that will not serve to create conflicts, and it complies with both the zoning code and the general plan requirements. There's 2 other ones. One, that the overall site layout is compatible and complements the existing surrounding development. As I mentioned, the proposed tiny home project will continue the pattern of medium density development between a heavier use of light industrial or commercial to the properties to the south, which are residential. And it also follows a similar pattern to the east, which you have homes on the south side of Ross Avenue that interface directly with light industrial businesses on the north side of Ross Avenue. To the west, there's a trucking business, which is a light industrial use. And again, the applicant is proposing a wall to kind of mitigate noise and dust and things like that along the west side. So design features will be incorporated into the project to help buffer some of the land uses that are neighboring. So staff believes that it will be compatible with the existing and surrounding land uses that way. The 4th finding has to do with establishing a clear design concept that's compatible with the character. As I mentioned, the mixed-use zoning allows for a minimum density of, I think, 8 units per acre. This one proposes for 17 units per acre, so it conforms with the minimum density requirements of the mixed-use zoning regulations. Mixed-use zoning is that it allows a mix between commercial, light industrial, residential uses, as long as it's higher density, and it's deemed them as compatible as long as you can identify conditions that will be able to address any concerns that the future residents may have or surrounding property owners may have. So those are the 4 findings. Staff believes that they can be met For general plan consistency, as I mentioned, the project will result in developing vacant land um, with housing stock that will help address the city's regional housing needs allocation, serving very low, low-income households. It also serves to provide a jobs housing needs balance for the neighboring businesses. When it comes to environmental review, the project is consistent with the general plan and designation of mixed use as it allows for residential development. When we look at the environmental designation of infill development, we have to look at 4 items. One, is it consistent with the general plan? 2, does it meet the densities? Are there no threatened or endangered birds or species in the area? Will we have an increase in traffic? All city utilities available. When staff evaluated these criteria that are listed in the California Environmental Quality Act, staff believes that none of these, that all of these findings won't be an issue for making the determination that the project is indeed exempt from CEQA Class 32 as an infill development project. Going to public notice was provided as published in the paper, posted on site, was published or available on the city's website. Public notice was distributed to property owners within 300 feet of the project site on June 6th. So all public notice requirements were met. In conclusion, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 2004-03 approving architect's site plan review application number ASPR 09-2023 based on the findings in the staff report and conditions of approval incorporated into the project, into the PC resolution, excuse me. That concludes my report. I know the applicant is here, the owner's agent, Mid-Valley Engineering. They may be available to respond to any questions. But that concludes my presentation. Staff is available to respond to any questions.
I do have a couple of questions. Is there any concern of that road that's going north-south there on the eastern side of the property that leads to the alley on Ross, that the general public is going to be using that road to access the industrial businesses that lie to the north? Or is that those properties going to be blocked off from that access?
Yeah, we discussed that issue with the applicant. We talked about different ways to designate those private roads as distinct, having signage that this is a private road, having perhaps a different entryway like pavers or something that kind of designate this a different area. But will they be able to travel further north? They could travel onto that eastern private street, turn right and exit through Ross Avenue and go up north. Will they be able to access the properties north, the recycling business? No, because that will be fenced off.
Okay. And then I see that this property will serve very low and low income households. How is that going to be achieved? Are there going to be deed restrictions, or how are citizens going to know that those will not be market rate rents that will be paid there, and how will that be achieved?
The applicant is pursuing state, federal, and low-income housing tax credits, which have affordability covenants for 55 years that have to be made available to low-income residents. So this project is predicated on them being able to secure additional financial assistance that requires, annual monitoring and reporting that these units are indeed made available to households that are low or very low income. One of the steps that they need is they need a land use entitlement that they can say, hey, we got our plan approval. So, we could go on to the next step for our funding application. This will help them in that cause.
Okay. Any other staff comments or questions?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. Oh, sorry, John. Well, so the ownership is going to be retained by the one owner. They'll all
Correct.
be rentals.
Yes. Yes, none of the homes, even though it says tiny home, they will all be rentals.
And because there's one owner and the private roads, is there any consideration or a reason it couldn't be a gated community and just have power-driven gates to enter and exit the property since?
And that's a good question. We broached that issue with the applicant and the owner, and they may elect to have a gate to control access onto the property. They can speak to that, Derek.
And
and
I
Mid-Valley
would think
can
it
speak
would
to
also
that.
control the speed that people come and go because you have to wait for a gate. So the surrounding neighbors on Ward, they would have slow traffic leading onto their street instead of people.
My expectation is that they're not proposing a gate. If they were to propose a gate, we have the gate installed further up and kind of have an area that they can kind of wait, if you will, until the gate opens, so there won't be impeding traffic along Ward Avenue.
On the light industrial separation, that seems like a possibility.
Yeah, this isn't always, these type of issues are always common with these infill properties. Usually they remain vacant because it's hard to develop. There's lots of development costs associated with them. But when you have an applicant that is prepared and willing to make these improvements, it'll help turn a vacant, perhaps dilapidated property into something that's more useful. Thank you.
Okay, we'll open up for public comments. Do we have any public comments on item 3.2 of the agenda? Seeing none, we'll close public comments. Seek a motion of approval of resolution 2024-003. Okay. And we'll reopen for the comment on Zoom.
Hello,
Yes.
my name is Jeff Glow. I'm the owner of Smoothest Glass Fiberglass Repair. Ross Road is directly behind my shop. So what I'd like to know is, with the tiny house development, is Ross Road going to continue through the gate that's there now? And if so, I strongly oppose that. I do not oppose the tiny houses, but Ross Road is extremely narrow. I see cars driving through there at 30, 40 miles an hour all the time. And if they're going to be able to have direct access into the tiny house area, this is going to be a huge problem. So I'd like to know how that's going to be addressed.
Let me go back to the site plan. So the tile and, I think it's granite, fabrication and installation business located in the northwest of the project site. Ross Avenue is proposed one to be a private road. There's an existing pavement there right now, and it will be widened to a 35-foot wide part with the street. It will not go beyond the western property line, which goes into the trucking business. Folks will be able to access the property from Ross Avenue and access this. The other thing that's kind of, I didn't point out, is that the private road, which is paved, is the main access driveway, or if you will, easement to the cell tower. That's how they get access to that cell tower. But the applicant is here and they can speak further as to any type of traffic control or traffic slowing measures that they may want to develop. But I don't expect it to be speeding on site. But again, I don't live on Ross Avenue, but I can certainly hear the concern. You can introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Derek Martis. I am the senior civil engineer with Mid Valley Engineering, and I am representing the owner.
So one more question on Ross Avenue. I think it was mentioned earlier that on the north side of Ross, once that street is widened to 35 feet, there will be a fence erected along Ross Avenue on the north side.
Correct.
So really the only people that should be on that section of Ross would be the people coming into and out of the property.
That is correct.
Have there been any considerations of speed bumps or speed deterrent measures being taken on those sections?
It wasn't discussed initially because it is a dead end road. I mean, that would certainly be a possibility to work through during the engineering process, but because it's not a through road, there wouldn't be a reason to expect speeding at the termination.
Okay, any further public comments? Okay, public comments are closed. Thank you very much. Okay, now we seek a motion for approval of resolution 2024-003 to approve item 3.2 of the agenda.
Move to approve.
I move to approve the project.
Second.
Okay, roll call. Vice Chair Zamora,
Yes.
Commissioner Dynan,
Yes.
Commissioner Link,
Yes.
and Commissioner Rubin.
Yes.
Okay, the project's approved 4-0.
Awesome. We can bring our development director back in.
Yeah, and I apologize, I didn't introduce him. We got busy going there.
I do want to take the opportunity to formally recognize Josh Amen as the new Community Development Director. He was appointed early May, so he'll be here. He's a permanent employee, and the position was upgraded from Planning Manager to Community Development Director. So welcome aboard, Joshua Mann.
Thank you, Miguel. Happy to be here, everyone.
Awesome. Item 4 of the agenda, any planning commission comments?
Good for me.
Okay, then let's, number 5, county referral correspondence. Any correspondence, additional information? No. Item 6, staff comments. Information only. There will be no action. Item 6.1.
Good evening, once again. This is an update on the housing element update. As you may be aware, the city contracted with JB Anderson, my firm, to update the city's 6th housing element. I would like to provide you with a status report on that effort. Staff has been busy updating the city's socioeconomic information. We've been evaluating the past housing goals and the housing sites inventory analysis, reviewing vacant lands, underdeveloped lands that have been identified previously as to helping us meet our regional housing needs allocation. The city has recently contracted with a GIS service provider, so now we have the geographic information systems to create maps, which is a big benefit to the city. It will allow us to update our zoning maps and general plan maps as those happen. And that will help us also with documenting and presenting our housing sites inventory to meeting our regional housing needs, determining our housing needs allocation is determined by STANCOG and HCD. There's going to be an opportunity for the commission and members of the public to assist in our effort. Staff is preparing a series of community meetings. The purpose of the meetings is to solicit public comment on how best to meet the city's housing needs requirements. Once we identify all the housing sites, and quite frankly, we don't have enough housing sites within the city limits to meet our RENA allocation, housing regional needs allocation. So once we compare, how much land we have available to meet our overall housing needs, we have a shortfall, so we need to identify additional housing sites to meet our regional housing needs allocation. And that may mean upzoning property from R1 to R2 or R3, or rezoning property like from commercial and industrial to residential. And what we're going to do through that process is identify not only the vacant sites, but also sites that can lend themselves to be evaluated. And so we'll be asking the public at a meeting to help us identify, prioritize which property should be considered for rezoning, upzoning, things like that. And so we're going to be scheduling a series of meetings. We're going to be having a stakeholder meeting. This will be occurring in July and August. A meeting with developers, affordable housing developers, members of the public, just to solicit their inputs. How did we do? What type of housing programs have been successful? What type of housing programs and goals should we consider adopting for the city to help it meet its basically community needs for housing? So we will have a series of meetings. We are also, we have a website that will be going live. I believe we'll be going live this Friday. That'll have a survey, so members of the public, yourselves can kind of go into the survey and kind of help us identify priorities in terms of programs, policies, what type of housing products we should be going to. And that will be available both in English and Spanish. We're just working on that Spanish translation to make that, but we expect to go live by Friday. And we will also include links to past housing element workshops. We'll include links to our draft chapters. There's different chapters for housing program, housing needs, housing constraints, things like that. So that will be available online. We're probably going to be targeting the last week of July. We just need to coordinate all the logistics. So it's, probably going to be happening late July or early August. Our intent is to develop a draft housing element that we could present to the State Housing Community Development Department for their initial review. And they give us comments, and then we bring that back to the Planning Commission and City Council for formal public hearings. And we say, okay, we've kind of asked, the state for their review, and these are some of the issues that they've identified, we've addressed, with the intent of bringing back a Planning Commission and City Council, a public hearing perhaps in early January 2025 for adoption of the house element for the next cycle of that. So stay tuned. That's our housing element update.
Thank you very much. Next, we have item 6.2, Josh Mann.
Thank you. Vice Chair and Planning Commissioners, I have a small update I just wanted to go through. There's a couple of items on the horizon that are going to the City Council. I just wanted to make you aware they won't come before your body, but these two items, one of them is a amendment to the current cannabis ordinance, and this amendment focuses on the appeal process. The other item that will be going is a ordinance on the Airbnb. And basically that would be whether to restrict or permit certain houses to be used as an Airbnb. And then the third ordinance, and this one will go directly to City Council as well, is an ordinance focusing on massage establishments within the city. In terms of applications your body may hear, we are working currently on a couple of residential parcel maps. Those would probably be ready for the Planning Commission in the next few months. Also, as Miguel mentioned, we're going to be doing a series of housing element items. Of course, we have the Riverwalk project that is also currently the De Novo Planning Group, who's the consultant handling the EIR. They're currently in the process of going through the various public comments received and responding to those. That process is expected to take approximately the next 2 to 3 months to complete. Other than that, there is various residential and commercial architectural site plan reviews being processed. Some of those may be in front of you in the near future. That's all I have. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item number 7. Meeting is adjourned.